All right, so on Wednesdays, I'm going to start off by answering the online questions.
Okay, yeah. So I responded with having just in person, right?
Yeah.
I said that yesterday, so I just want to make sure.
There we go. All right. Let me tell everybody the stream is up and functioning. But first, I'm going to give you guys a 15-minute assessment. Right? This is for me, not for you. Make this. It's spinning for you. You don't have to animate it. But knowing what you know, make this as closely as possible. New file. Ready, go. Again, not graded. Don't, no reason to be.
We're making that.
Yeah, try and make this. So there's two facets here. You should be able to do this using the skills that we've already talked about. And number two, there's also the look at something and figure out what are the parts. What are the component parts? I usually refer to this as stealing the secret sauce or style emulation, right? Being able to look at something and break it down. Again, you don't have to animate it. I'm just spinning it around so you can see it. Also, there's probably some clues up here. So streamers, same thing for you guys at home. I'm giving everybody 15 minutes to see if they can remake this object. You guys should be able to participate here. You should be able to see this and do your thing. People who get the closest earn the greatest prize of all. Respect. Do you want me to make it stop spinning? Would that be easier? Okay. Those of you guys on the stream, I'm getting a alarm from YouTube. Just say something in the chat that the stream is still up. It says people are still watching it.
What's the search button again? Control.
Shift and someone help them out. How do you search for things in Symfony? Shift C. Guns N' Roses. Awesome. I was just listening to User Illusion 2 this morning. Emily, you were listening to the stream on Monday, right? So when I'm not in front of the computer, can you still hear me? You can. Like enough to understand what I'm saying?
Somewhat. It's
Somewhat.
really muffled.
Alright.
I couldn't last week.
Yeah, last week I had a noise gate on because I wasn't thinking, and so that like turns me off if it's too quiet. I'm trying to get a lapel mic so that as I walk around and do stuff that it would be the same. But
Can I just give you one?
what's that?
Can I give you my?
Your lapel mic? Well, I need a wireless.
Yeah.
Your inset color doesn't have to be pink, right? I just made it pink because that's what I do. So the GCC Cafe is open again now, right? You can get as much food as you ever want. What's that?
It's been open the whole time.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought they closed it for us. Awesome. Has anyone heard anything about the coffee shop?
I don't think it's open. I have not seen it.
I still have to open up the games if I've seen it do 4 hours between my classes.
Yeah.
I would say the coffee shop is more important. I see a drop in academic productivity. Yeah, I mean, it is life changing now. We have a Starbucks across the street. That's at least something.
I don't really brew my own coffee though.
Yeah. So right, people on the stream, your challenge is to see if you can remake this thing that's on the screen right now. And yes, Marvin is correct. It has 5 sides. On the YouTube recordings of the live chat, or recordings of the stream, the chat is there too, right? It's archived. And 4 minutes and 8 seconds. Now I want one of those big clocks. Does anyone else watch Lego Masters? My boy really likes Lego Masters. It's a good show. I mean, Will Arnett is Will Arnett. I can understand if you have some aversions to him. But, you know, they get these timed Lego building challenges. Here's some good hints in the chat. Marvin, aka Misfit Pants, says that has more than 4 edges. How did you get the cube into that shape? Cassandra replies, I made a cylinder, not a cube. Cassandra's onto something there. All right, hands off the computer. It's like those cooking shows, you know, when the time runs out, everybody has to put their hand off the food.
Push right through.
Okay, it seems like there's definitely some getting stuck at the beginning, right? So I made a 5-sided thing, right? And then when you go up and look in the menu, there's no obvious, I'll do this in front of the computers today. Okay, chat, time's up. There's no way for them to put pictures in the chat, right?
No.
Right, yeah, that's obviously a bad idea.
I like the best too. I'll use my interpreter as well. I like
Although, if we just use the Slack channel as the live chat, then people would be able to,
Yeah.
like when I started class, I was like everybody just talk over there. If I had that up, then people would be able to put pictures and whatever there. Yeah. We'll have to give that a shot. Chat, are you guys hearing me? The thing is, I need to get Slack. If I could just sign into Slack. Is that if we use the, those of you guys who are on the chat, go ahead and post pictures, just a screenshot. Remember, that's Windows Shift S of whatever you ended up with after 15 minutes. Everybody save this? I know some of you don't want to, but save it. Okay, so here we go. Let's all work through it together. You guys did pretty good. I was impressed. I tried to put it at a place where it would be challenging but not impossible, right? And so let's break it down real quick. Yeah, the key was starting with the cylinder, right? First of all, what's the first thing you're doing now? Muscle memory? You need to see the what's. In order to do any of this stuff, we need to be seeing the NB, right, polygons, right, in order to know what's going on here. And here, right, the cylinder is round by default, but if I dial this down to 5, not 54, 5, there we go. See, now I get something where if this was a starting point, it's a little bit more obvious how to go about it from this point, right? Because what happens, Monique, what needs to happen next here in order to make the shapes on the sides? Or make any of the shapes? I need.
Don't you have to do like how did you do the first part?
In the cylinder, down here at the bottom, rotation segments. I turn that to 5.
But don't you have to do like the Polygon Tool?
Okay, in order to use the Polygon Tool, I still need to do something before that because this is still a primitive. In order to make it editable, right? And what is the shortcut for that? C for convert, right? There. Now, like Monique said, I can come over and grab the Polygon Tool. I want to grab all the ones the whole way around this thing. Kyler, what's the shortcut for that? To grab all the polygons on the side. UL for loop selection. There we go. Okay. Now, in order to inset these, I need to use which command? Inner extrude, right? Inner extrude or inset. And I'm getting this, just to be clear, one of the other important ones with extrude and inner extrude, I would write this one down, is this parameter right here. This is an important one. Preserve groups. So watch what this does. Because right now, wait a second, I did but this doesn't look right? Because it's treating the entire selection as one group. If I uncheck this, which means don't group them, now I have you see it insets each polygon, right? So this versus this. Okay, I'm not saying that one is right and one is wrong. In this case, I want to use this because that's the shape I'm after. And then I need to push it in. And so, Riley, what do I do to push this in? What tool is that?
Push it in?
Yeah.
So you would just use a scroll thing, or?
No, there's a specific, we used 2 commands. We used which was inner extrude, and then D, which is extrude, right? The word extrude kind of means pulling out, right? But it also pushes in. And so I can push in. And then, Nicole, what's next?
Do the next Polygon part?
Yeah. So what tool is that?
I again?
That's right, I again. And that can come in here. And then that needs to be pushed in again, Noelle, with D. Yes, you are correct, Misfit Pants. He also said D, Marvin. Cool, all right. And now since I have that selected, I should probably use that selection while I can and go ahead and, right. So here's another one, a slightly new twist, is that if I drag this material onto here, it'll apply the material only to this selected part. We covered that Monday-ish, right? So here, I drag it on, it does that. This part up here, this is this icon represents those polygons. I'm not sure if I made that totally clear. Like this is the save polygons that are part of that set. And so if you if you click on any other polygons, and you need to come back to that stuff, you can double click and it'll come back to here, right? So that represents those save polygons. Cool. Now, that looks pretty good. What about the top? The top was slightly different, right? Okay, so here was inset. That looks pretty good. Up here, though, what's going on? Right, per one side, I have how many things? 2, right? And so that was the part where we need to add some, well, essentially, what needs to happen here? I need to cut it in half, right? With what tool? Knife. Yeah, that's right.
I was gonna scissors for some reason.
Yeah, I don't think there's a scissors tool.
That's why I was
Yeah.
thinking
Right? And so I'll do KK like we did before, right? And this allows me to cut from here to here, escape, here to here, escape, here to here, escape, here to here, escape, and here to there, escape. Yes?
Are you pressing something specific to get it to snap in the middle?
No. It's kind of snapping. It's not doing it exactly. Yeah, in the new version, it will, you can hold down Shift, and it should. But I think on this one I'm using right now, it does not.
It didn't feel like it was snapping on the side a lot.
Yeah. We'll do some more knife tool today. But okay, so that's good, right? And so now what do I need to do here? Emily, what's next to get the top to look right? There we go. And remember, if it were this preserve groups is important here, right? This versus this. So here, and then same kind of thing, right? D, push it in. I came in a little bit more. Cool. And again, could add that there so that gets colored correctly. Looking good? All right. So, Taryn, there's no rounded corners. What object do I need to round the corners? Shh. Bevel, right? All right, I'll grab the, not only do I need the bevel tool or the bevel deformer? What's that? The deformer, that's right, the purple one. So up here, bevel, or Shift C, bevel, right, comes up. Doesn't seem to be doing anything. Why not? This one is critical. What do I need to do to get these two things to work together? Emily?
Make the cylinder a child of the bevel, or you can make them, what's it called? Oh, here, thank you.
Peers, right? Yeah, group them. So Alt-G. And so now they're in there. Let's get the bevel. Let's add a couple subdivisions to round it out. It's beveling this edge here. That's kind of undesirable because of the angle. There we go. Now we're at least beveling the correct edges. Maybe it needs to be a little bit smaller. I don't know, 0.5, depending on there. Looks pretty good. Jose, you can do both. You can just sort of improve the one as far as you got. We're just doing this as a test, not a graded test. This looks pretty good. What what is still missing here, Itzel? Yes, it is not beveled, but it's part of the object, and I have the bevel in there. What gives? This bevel doesn't seem to be working on my entire object. I want my money back. 1 star. Kyler?
It's not optimized.
It's not optimized. Everybody remember this from last time? Right? So, just to review, especially with objects that have caps at the end, right? The cap being this part and this part, is that they look like they're part of the object, but they are not by default, right? And so if I were to come in here and select all the connected polygons, what's the select connected shortcut? U W, right? That's easy to remember because there is not a W in the word connected. And so if you see how those are all the, turns out they're not connected at all, right? By asking it for the selected connected polygons, it doesn't work. And so I fixed this, just like Kyler said, by optimizing, right? Optimizing is one of those commands. Most of the time, if you're having some modeling problems, optimization is part of the solution, right? It may not be the only thing, but it's definitely part of it. How do I optimize? I go to point mode, I go Control A, right? So this process, you definitely want to know. Point mode, Control A, right click, optimize. Now, let's all write that down. That's the one, definitely one takeaway from here. How to optimize. 1, point mode. 2, Control or Command A, which gives you all the points, right? And then 3, right click, optimize. Is it T-O or T-I?
Yeah.
There we go. I was right the first time. Of course I was. There we go. Right click, optimize. Right? And so what does it do? It fuses those points that look like they're together to you. They're actually not. It takes those and fuses them together. So it looks around each point and says, is this point in the same point as another point? In which case I will fuse them together to actually make them do what you think they're doing. And now, if I come back here, let's see, did I actually run it? I'm not sure I ran it. What did I do? I stepped too far back here. Okay, I did something where I was demonstrating and threw it off. I don't know. This one, that's exactly what I did. Now they're all together. I also made a metal material and put that on the rest of the stuff. So it looked kind of reflective.
But also remember when you add on the metal material to move it all the way over to the left in your tabs. So that way it doesn't overlap because it reads from
right to left. Right, this over here, this is the top of the stack, and then this is the bottom. Right, so Bell makes a really good point. If this were over here, it would cover those up. And so I want this over there. So now that you see how it was done, does it seem less confusing? Let me see. You know, a little bit? A little bit. When I select a plane and press UW, everything seems to be connected before. Danielle, if you're working with a plane, everything is connected. It's only with objects that have a cap where the cap is disconnected. Cool. All right, good. We'll keep doing that. I think that's fun. It's fun, right? It's just fun. It's just a good time, right? You think it's stressful now? Wait till I get a big countdown clock up here. Oh, I could just use the back TVs for that.
Make it actually like a cooking show. It's
Mm-hmm.
like 10 minutes
Yeah.
have elapsed.
And I could set up other obstacles, right?
No.
So
Like,
I'll bring
like,
somebody in with
carry
like
on.
squirt guns to like blast everybody while you're working,
Or
and
like in the middle of an assignment, like silently add another thing to it, and you're like,
yeah, or like costume mascots that bash you with giant foam things while you're trying to model.
That's safer.
I would much rather get beaten to death by a mascot than spread with this work.
It's already so cold in here. Like,
Oh, that's
yeah.
true.
I know, yeah, it's even colder than it was before. When I walked in here this morning, it was, I mean, it was as if I was walking into like a large, like one of those walk-in refrigerators. I was like, oh my God, it is freezing in here. Hence the doors open all the time. I guess, you know, we can be assured that the ventilation in here is pretty good because it is cold, really cold.
Get like a box of blankets that you can rent.
Yeah, no, I said that in the morning class. Like before I was telling you to bring a sweater, like you should bring a parka of some kind. And maybe we'll just get blankets and like bear skins that people can cover themselves with. Bear skins with the bear head on them.
So you can wear it like a hat.
Exactly. Okay, let's check in with our online students.
Okay, so hi everyone. Hopefully you're watching this.
Here's Jose. So Jose, I know you're on the chat right now. I think in OBS here at the bottom, if there's two places where you're seeing your audio come in, turn one of them down, because that's why you sound like kind of like a robot. It's called phasing or flanging.
Okay, so for this one, like I have this problem that these things that I don't know what it is. Like I don't know what I did here, but as you can see, like also in the corners, it looks like weird. I don't know if it's because I moved like to the front or something, but like the question is like what could have happened here, and I don't know if where is it? Well, I don't know if we are supposed also to show this since we're not gonna be in class today, but here is the table of the homework.
Oh, nice. WandaVision.
I don't know, it's just a table. Homework, that, okay. And I think that's it.
Cool. So I think what happened to Jose's first example there, where there's some weirdness happening in the corner, it looked like the bevel got turned inside out, right? And so those big corners, those big round corners we put on the TV, if you bevel, here, let's turn up these. Yeah, so here's an example of, usually it's an instance of, you go in to use one of the tools, extrude or bevel or something, and you accidentally click and then click again. And so you use the tool twice, but the first time you used it, you didn't really move at all, but it still did its thing. And so it created all these like tiny little microscopic polygons that then when you go to use the tool for real, end up being a huge problem, right? And so here, oh, I drug the wrong way. Oh, it's fine, it's cool. Let me just drag the right way. Whoa. See what happened there? Right, so I drug to the left just for a second, the first time I clicked. And then I drug to the right to bevel it, especially the bevel tool, right? Because it's creating so much more geometry. Then I get, a bunch of garbage here. So something like this probably happened. Let me see if I can fix it on the fly. Like if I do this and then this, all right, it's wrong. If I grab all of it and optimize, and then, yeah. See how that fixed that in particular problem there? Right, so I had done that tiny, there it was, like we'll call it a micro bevel, and it's totally messed everything up. And so, okay, my stuff is bad. I know there's something weird going on here. I'm gonna run and optimize, Control A, right click, optimize. I'm gonna go back to edge and bevel, and I'm good, right? So again, optimize, your friend. Fusing all that tiny chunk together when there might be a problem. And yeah, Jose's looks really good. I like the legs on the table. Jose, in the chat, I know you guys are a couple, maybe like a minute behind. Did you make those legs as individual parts, or is the whole table one piece? Let us know in the chat there, Jose. Cool. There's Jose. Here's Jacqueline.
Hello. I just wanted to start off saying that I really liked this week's assignment. It was very interesting. I like learning how to apply a lot of the 3D tools.
Yeah, never hurts to tell me how much you like the class.
My only issue this week was the Cinema 4D exercise. For some reason, the shadows didn't want to show up, and I don't know why. Like, the shadow is selected, but it didn't actually show up, so I don't really know what the problem might be for that. And also, the light, like it shows it right here, but I don't know where it's pointing at. Like, I don't know. And another thing is that my background, like, I don't know if that had to do with it, because even when I render it, it doesn't work. Like, this is what it shows up in, and the background just looks like it's not even there, it's just gray. So yeah, any feedback for that would be great.
Jacqueline, these are great questions. Good. All right, so first thing, remember here we go. The shadows don't show up until you render. That's kind of lame, right? Like, it would be great if I could see the shadows while I'm working. So here, let's learn a couple of things real quick. Here, I will make a light. Okay, so this is an Omni Light, and she said she didn't know what direction it was facing. So which lights have we talked about? Spotlight.
Area light.
Did we talked about the area light?
Oh no, I don't think we did. Never mind.
Yes. We talked about the spotlight. I remember that. And did we talk about the infinite light? We didn't talk about infinite light yet. Okay, yeah, so we talked about the spot/target, kind of the same things. This one right here, So the light bulb light, right? This one. Right, that's the one that Jacqueline had here. This is the Omni Light, right? And its name helps us answer Jacqueline's question, which direction is it facing? All. Right, so it's like a light bulb if the light bulb were an infinitely small point that just spewed light in all directions, okay? So that's why the gizmo for the light, for the Omni Light, isn't obviously facing in a direction, because it's just making light in all directions from one point, okay? So this is okay. There's some problems later on in that, again, this is like physically impossible, right? Usually, like imagine this whole room being lit by like a single Christmas light that was bright enough to light up this whole room, right? Like that would be, the resulting light would be strange. And that's what happens when you try to light an entire indoor scene with one Omni Light, right? The angles and everything else is strange. And so Jacqueline, the Omni Light faces in all directions. Now, I would start a new notebook page, making the viewport better. Shift V takes you to viewport settings, okay? Shift V. V is in victory, for you're winning the viewport battle.
What is it? Shift V?
V. I guess this is usually Y, right? So, how would you do a V? I guess you'd lay on the ground and then do like your hands and feet up. There's not a song that you do that to that has a V in it that I can think of. Anyways, Shift V. And those of you guys, so when you did Shift V on 24, is this tab called Enhanced OpenGL still or not? I can't remember.
No.
What is the far right tab called?
Effects?
Effects? Yeah? Okay. Like this?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is what it will say on your version at home. At school, it says Enhanced OpenGL. Like, this is more meaningful and obviously makes more sense, right? And so in this tab, you can turn on these different effects for the viewport, which will make the viewport look way better. So for instance, shadows. If we click that box, and then we turn on shadows on our light, now there's a shadow in the viewport, right? And you can see how this is a way better way to work, because now you can tell what is going on. It's there when I'm working, and it's there when I'm rendering. Right? Yes?
I wanted to, so when she was asking the question in the video, I noticed that she doesn't have anything for the shadows to fall on. There's no floor and
Yeah. Okay, so that takes me to, that's a really great point, because she was asking about the background object. The background object is not like the background we built the first week. You know, we built that like simple studio setup for when we were messing around with the cloner and stuff. The background is just like a picture you're going to put in the bag, all right? And so it's not a piece of geometry. Shadows won't fall onto it. It's not a floor at all. To be honest, I don't really use this object often. It's just like as if you just took it into After Effects and then just comped something behind it, okay? And you can color the background by putting a material on it. And again, it doesn't show up until you render. But I don't use this object very often, right? I think I'm gonna switch to my laptop here later in class so that I can use the new version and just project that. But yeah, so the short answer is don't really use the background object right now. It's not really what you think it is. And then Shift V, and in this menu here, the things that really help are reflections should be on. And then here's another acronym to learn. SSAO. Screen space, I'll write it down. Screen space ambient occlusion. What is ambient occlusion? Here, watch what happens. Watch this corner right here where this comes into contact with this when I turn this on. See that? So without, with, without, with, right? And so the other name for this you'll hear is like contact shadowing. When two objects are very close to each other, it darkens the crease where they meet. That is ambient occlusion. The screen space part refers to how it's being calculated. Like you can see it's also over here, which isn't exactly correct, but it's a fast calculating version of it. And so those are things I would definitely turn on, right? The shadows, reflections I think are on by default in the new version. I'm not entirely certain. And then the SSAO. It's just going to make it look that much better while you're working on things. So that answers your other question, Jacqueline. So that, yeah, turning on shadows, obviously, and in fact, even when you take the shadow density and turn it down, that also affects the viewport, which is great. And so now it's much easier to get, the shadows are so important because it helps us tell where an object is in space, right? It's without the shadowing, it's hard to tell, like how far is this cube? It looks like the cylinder could be sitting on this plane further back, right? But once you turn on the shadow, then it's easier to say, oh, okay, I see. This is actually above the plane, and now I can, much better sense of space. So that's a big one. I'm doing that almost immediately when I start a project. Shift V, make sure that my stuff is turned on. There's some more to that. There's some things you can do now to make the viewport look really, really good, and almost to the point where you don't need to render. You can just output the viewport, which is way faster. Cool, great questions, Jacqueline. Who else is here? Juliana?
I hope that this is a valid question, but based on the
All questions are valid questions, please.
work we've been doing in Cinema 4D so far, what would be like the most complex object we'll be modeling? And like in terms of the rendering as well as like the textures, utilizing either PNGs or even creating our own textures, like what's the amount of complicated that it can get?
It can get horrendously complicated. Awesome. As far as like what is the ceiling of complication? Like well beyond my limit to understand, that's for sure. Like it can get really, really crazy. We're gonna try to come at this a different angle and take complicated things and break them down into simple parts, because that's really the best way to approach these sort of problems, right? Or this sort of work, is that usually it looks like a complicated thing, but once you break it down and look at the different parts, then you can just put simple things together to get complexity. And yeah, we're gonna make our own textures. We're gonna using Substance Painter, and yeah. So I mean, I think later today we'll look at what's going on, and then we're gonna start like a really simple robot, and you guys will work on that for Wednesday. Remember, no school on Monday, right? Cool. That was a good question, Juliana. And please don't be afraid to ask any question. Marvin.
Professor Casey.
You may know Marvin as Misfit Pants.
This is Marvin Counts, and I have a question about
Marvin's got this awesome streamer set up. He's got his green screen behind him.
About this week project that we're working today, which is the television project. So within the project, there's one issue that I've encountered. I'm trying to figure out how to reduce like the capturing color of the reflective material, and I can't figure out how to do that, because when I try to render the television, it shows that the buttons, like the reflective material on the buttons, is picking up the colors from the floor. You know, so it appears a different color, but you can see it's original color slightly. So I'm trying to fix that, where more of the original color of the buttons are like showing, not just.
Cool. Good question, Marvin. Good question. So here, if I make a reflective material, here's a material. In order to control the reflection, I need to go into, first of all, what are all of these things over here called? Channels. Very good. And I need to go into which one to deal with the reflection? Reflectance. Right. That's pretty obvious. And then in here we have our layers of reflection. And so by default, we only have one layer of stuff in here, and that's default specular. And so this is reflection as it works in the real world is computationally expensive, right? We have photons bouncing off of things, bouncing infinitely, more or less, and affecting reflection the whole way. To do that kind of computation is expensive. And up until recently, recently being like the last 5 years, kind of impossible, or at least not readily accessible to like personal computers, right? And so up until that point, all of the computer graphics stuff was finding ways to cheat, right? What can we do that's going to be not as expensive that will work? And so the word specular, it comes up a lot. In this context, it means light reflections. Okay, reflections of, let me amend that. Light source reflection. Okay, that's what the word specular means, because as people were doing this work, like let's say like Toy Story 1, Toy Story 2 era, like that level of rendering, the look could be created by just figuring out where is the light source and can I put that in the reflection. That's usually enough, right? Unless you're using a mirror or something like that. That usually gets you far enough along to work. That's fine. Not reflecting everything in the room. And so that's what we have here by default. It's just, the reflection channel is just by default, the default specular is just worried about the light sources, getting the light sources reflected in there. And so what we've been adding, right, when you go to add, we've been adding a Beckman, right, reflection layer. And this is a real reflection layer. It's reflecting everything, okay? It's not the old style technology, it's the new style. That's part of the reason why this reflectance channel is so, there's so much junk going on here, right? Is that this is kind of bridging the gap between old style rendering and new style rendering. And making software is hard, right? You can't just throw everything out the window because you need to support the old stuff, and it kind of needs to build a graph and whatnot. So that's why this is less complicated. And so, Marvin, if you're only seeing the color from the floor in your dials, you need to, your reflection layer is probably at 100%, meaning that it's showing 100% of the reflected light and none of the color that's underneath it. And so if you dial this down, then the underlying color will show through. Right, so by default, it's at 100%. Right? This is one of those deals where I wish companies paid more attention to this, and I think it's on their radar now, is that the default values for things should be the ones that you're using most of the time, right? And so in this case, it would make way more sense that the default value for a new layer would be 50. That way, you could just sort of use it without having to confront this kind of weird edge case situation. And so, because here, you know, it looks plenty reflective. That's what people would expect when I have a green thing. Now I want a reflective green thing. And, you know, they do this, they're like, it's not green anymore, right? And so if you just dial that down, then you'll get the color underneath along with the reflection. Cool. Thank you, Marvin. One more. Christine.
Okay, so we're adding a cube, and we're going to do this cube in Polygon mode.
Okay, so Christine, same thing I was talking to Jose about. In your OBS settings, here you've probably got more than one place where the audio is coming in, and just take one of them and turn it down. That way the audio will be a little bit cleaner. We can hear you just fine, but it's there's like a weird echo delay thing.
And we mentioned something about structure tab. Is structure tab something that we have to really familiarize ourselves with it and like get used to, or was it just kind of like passing by a statement that's like, this is here and it exists, but we're not really going to do anything with it in the class, I guess. Yeah. Cool, thanks. Okay, so
Is she saying cool, cool, cool because I say cool, cool, cool? Is she trolling me? So the structure, no, we don't really use the structure tab very often. I was just opening it up as a demonstration, but we're going to read a structure. There we go. It's important to realize that this is what is actually going on, right? The program is essentially just manipulating data. Many of the programs are trying to expose this in a more direct way, in that we have this data. In this case, the data is coordinates, and we are just transforming that data along the way. Right, so another program I use sometimes is Houdini. Right, so Houdini has a free student license. And yeah, so Google, clearly my search history is affecting what Google is showing me first for Houdini, because this is the right website, right? Houdini, the visual effects software, isn't taking me to the history of Harry Houdini correct right away. Anyways, Houdini is another piece of software that does 3D graphics, particularly a lot of simulation type stuff. And in there, they're leveraging this idea of manipulating data in a really, it's like the foundation of the program, is that here we go, this is an example of, that your data would be represented in a chart like this, and then your work would be in, manipulating the data through a nodal interface like this. We're going to get to some of this, because this works particularly well for visual stuff like compositing and material work. Like, we'll use some node-based stuff. But yeah, so and in this, when you're working with geometry, it's just taking the stuff from the structure and manipulating that big database of points. Right? And there's a lot of other programs like Houdini. You can do this in Cinema too. Like, if you really want to get in there, there's an entire Python and C interface to Cinema 4D where you can access all of this stuff directly to manipulate it all. Sound good? All right, I think that's all the questions. Awesome, that went pretty well. Great questions, everybody. Jose says he believes that Christine is trolling me. Let's see. Yes.
I kind of something I wanted to show everyone that they could do with their at-home computers.
Okay.
You know, every time I start a new project, you have to start up. You have to open your render settings, change it to 24. Open your project settings, change it to 24. And now we're also going to go into the viewport settings and change those settings. Well, with your at-home computer, if you open your preferences folder, you will first create a new project, change all the things you want to change.
Where's the preferences? There we go. Preferences.
So you can open your preferences folder and pin it to your quick access so that you can save something into it. So at the way bottom of your preferences, in your preferences window, there says open preferences folder. That. So that you're going to pin it to your quick access. So you drag on the top where you have like, here, I'm gonna come over there. So up top where you have your, way up top, where it says Cinema 4D R20 4FA. Right.
Oh, this one.
This. That. Yes. You want to move that over to your quick access, so it'll be pinned in there. You see where it
Over
says
to
quick
here?
access? Yes, pin it in there. Okay, so then with your new project open, right? If you save it with all your things changed into that folder, every time you open a new project, it will open that way. But you have to save it as new.cinema4D in this folder.
New.cinema. I don't think, yeah, this won't stick at school, but let's do it.
New.c4D.
So,
It works for a little bit. I tried it on the computer in here until you close it. And then
until you
reopen
log
it.
out, yeah.
Because I was like, maybe we could do that for all the computers in here and not have to change it.
Yeah, I could probably push that. So, let's do that. What do we want to change? So, I'm just gonna make a plane, and a cube, as something so we know what's going on, right? And so, here's the setup stuff, right? So we did, but we'll go back to Shift V, but Control D is project settings, right? Control D. And so in Control D, let's go ahead and what frame rate do we always want to render at? 24, right? So in FPS, I'm going to switch that to 24. And here's the project time, maximum time and preview time. I'm going to change that. Something else you can do math right in the windows, right? And so instead of 3 seconds, I want to do 5 seconds. And so, Kyler, what's the math for that? 5 times what? For total number of frames. That's right. 5 times. So you can just type that right into the thing. 5 times 24. 5 times 24 is 120 frames. I think I got something else wrong. There we go. Okay, that's good. Now let's do the viewport stuff we were just talking about. Shift V. And I'm going to make sure I have shadows on. I'm going to make a light so that I can tell what's going on. And that, so there's an actual light in my scene to start off. And with that light, I'm going to make sure the shadows are on. So under, there we go, shadow map soft. That's what I'll put in there. I'll chill out those shadows a little bit. I'll make this a little bit bigger.
I'm not sure if it works with like object settings, but I know it works with like the viewport settings and it works with project settings and render settings.
I did this once. I think you can put stuff in there. Let's find out. So we got a light stuff and Shift V. We've got shadows, reflections are on, and we also want to turn on SSAO, which stands for what? Yeah, ambient occlusion, right? When you think, it may sound like just, Greek. Ambient, as in ambient light. Occlusion is something blocking something else, right? You're occluding the view. And so ambient occlusion is the blocking of the ambient light. And so that's why it's darker there. And so I've got those 3 things on. On your home computers, it might be a good idea to also check this one out of the box, transparency. I'm not going to, what the heck. This will get erased as soon as I'm done anyway on the school computer, so let's go for it. All right. So anyways, I got all those things in there. And let's say this. So on the school computer, I might not even be able to write to this file. Let's see. Oh, you were able to do it on a school one? You tried it on a school one? Okay.
It worked as soon as I opened a new one, but as soon as I closed the computer or signed out and signed back in, and you just literally type in new, N-E-W.
Does it have to be capitalized or no? Did you
capitalize the first letter?
You did? I don't know if it's sensitive or not.
I've never done it without it, so I don't know if it changes the result or not.
Cool.
So you saved that to the preferences folder, right, up in quick access?
Mm-hmm. So here, now I'm gonna.
So if you can, all you have to do is in Cinema 4D now, if you hit new project, right, so you're opening a brand new project, it'll open with all of those settings now.
So let's
test that out.
Let's do that. I'm gonna come over here to right here's the file I just saved. I'm gonna drag it into here.
Okay.
There it is. That's how you did it?
Yeah.
Okay, great. And now, now if I press Control N, ta-da! There we go.
So there's multiple projects now open with the exact same thing.
Right, here's.
If you were to close all the projects, it would, or at least close those projects, it would also just try to put all of that stuff in it.
Right, here let me see if it sticks on the at least closing cinema. So I'll go ahead and close cinema. No. No. So those of you guys on your home computers, you did this, correct? You're doing it right now? We'll take a second and I'll do this together. Here we go. Cinema 20. Kyler, you try it and sign in and sign out. See if it sticks. I'm on the stream, so I don't want to turn this off.
I've tried it on the school computer. For the life of me, I've done it 2 or 3 times now.
I think I might be able to submit it to the help desk. They might be able to update that in the image.
I think the only reason it didn't work, I noticed, was because the preferences folder is inside of the user data. Like, so all the, I guess the data that Maxon is saving, it's in there, but through user. And so, app data. So the preferences folder is in the app data.
Okay.
So every time I log out, it erases it because of that, and then I log back in.
I think that might be different in the newest version, which hopefully we'll be having on these computers like imminently. So maybe that'll help.
Update it, it'd be cool to try it again.
Yeah, I'll try it again.
Huh? Can you say the steps for me?
Oh, yeah, of course.
So, I have Cinema 4D for the newest one, so.
So you have a new project open.
Yeah.
And then you just, so we need to go into project settings, Control D.
So people on your home computers, the folder you need to get to, right? You open up Preferences, and then at the very bottom, there's this button right here. Click Open Preferences folder. This is where the new template needs to show up. And let's make a list of the changes.
You change your next time to 5 times 24. This will also be available on the video.
Yeah, so, yeah, that's step 1, 24 FPS.
No, for step 2, 120 frames or 124 frames?
Yeah, whatever, just a little bit longer, right? So, you know, by default, it's only going to be 3 seconds, which usually is almost always like too short. Yeah. The important thing is 24 frames per second. That's the one that causes the most problems. Viewport settings, which is Shift plus V, and turn on shadows. Turn on SSAO. What else did we do? We turned on transparency. Yeah. And then all of those things.
Why are we painting keeping the flame in the light?
Just so you have something in there when you get started. I mean, you can easily delete them later, right? But, you know, when you turn it on, you can, it tells you then that, like, oh yeah, all of this stuff is on, right? Like, I can see that I've enabled, like, everything's good to go. I've got lights on, I've got shadows on, like, because otherwise, if there wasn't any stuff in there, you wouldn't really be able to tell right away whether or not you had shadows and SSAO and all that other stuff enabled. Yeah, Cassandra, in the new version, it's going to be, the tab is called Effects, not Enhance OpenGL. And then you have to Is that working for you guys on your home machines? Yeah? Okay, great. Kyler, did it stick after you relogged in?
No,
Okay.
but I'm trying something weird.
But what are you doing?
I'm trying to see if I can stick it onto the hard drive and get it to recognize that.
Oh. I mean, at the very least, you could save the file to the hard drive and just double click it to make, use that as your starting point just manually. But
So that table for the TVs do, what's that do?
but we'll look at those in a second.
Okay.
Oh, cool. This works good. Just having people post a picture, if we want to check in pictures, they can just post pictures to the Slack. Cassandra, if your shadows are still very dark, you need to go to click on the light, click on the shadow tab, and here under density, turn that down. Okay, so go ahead and pull up your, or here, let's do this so that people at home can participate. Because, yeah, post just so everybody know how to take a screen. Everyone's on Windows here, or is everybody on Windows? Is anyone on Mac here? Monique's on Mac, but everybody else. So how do you take a screenshot on Windows? Okay, the other one is hold down Windows Shift S. Brings up the where you can just get part of the screen. You can just say, just take a picture of this. And the nice thing is that gets copied to the clipboard, and in Slack you can just go in there and paste it into a message. You don't even need to do anything with saving it. You can just paste it in there. So go ahead and put a picture of your TV table on Slack so that everybody can see them there. People online, someone already did this. Who did this? Marvin already put a picture of his TV table on Slack. Yes.
For the TV stand, I wanted to make it look like the bottom part had like the speaker part. You know how like in the old ones, it kind of looks like really wiry brown like squares. How would I do that?
I'm not quite sure. Like this?
Yeah.
What is this? Oh, it's one of those cardboard pieces of furniture that you use for staging a house. You guys seen these? Or they use them in like when you go to IKEA and you look at the audio-visual stuff, like the TV stands and the entertainment stands. They don't have real TVs; they just have like cardboard boxes that look like TVs. That's what this is apparently. Because I was like, Walmart? You can buy this TV at Walmart? So to get this kind of look on it, right? Yeah, we're going to get to that. So those sort of like super small service details there, that would be something that you're doing in the material. You wouldn't be, unless you were going to zoom in really close on that in the video or in the picture, then there would be no reason to model that sort of very, very tiny detail. But just very quickly, we'll get to this more, but you can make it appear as if things are coming in and out in one of the channels. The appropriately named, if I can zoom, bump channel. And so if I turn on the bump channel, and I'm just doing this quickly just to demonstrate. We'll talk about this way more. If I go to surfaces, there should be like a
grading or something.
yeah, I think there's like a tile, and then this tile has different patterns. That might work. There we go. So this isn't exactly the right pattern, but you can see how this gives it the impression now that it has this tiny in and out on it. Because it's not actually manipulating the geometry, it's just manipulating the way the light is reflected off the surface to create all of this tiny, tiny detail. So that's going to be in the material and not in the geometry. So it's not something that you would model. You would just model a square there and then put this material on it. Jose asked where the preferences folder is. The preferences folder is what you open when you go to edit, preferences, and then at the very bottom there's this button. You want to click that. Everybody posting a picture of their retro TV stand? Can I sign in Slack on the computer just to see it online? Yeah, I mean just to see it, yeah. Slack. I always use the app. Is anybody signing into Slack online on the browser often? Yeah, sure. I mean, they turned up all of the ventilation on campus for virus mitigation, and then all of the computer servers on campus are stored next door. So this building is pretty aggressive climate control. So yeah, seriously, like bring a sweater or parka or
There's my ominous
cool. All right, I got into Slack here. Great. Can I make this bigger? I can. Cool. There's Riley's TV and TV stand. So Riley, how'd you make this TV stand?
So I was bored. I made a cube, rounded it out with what's it called? I don't know what it's called. I can't remember its name. I think it's a fillet, right? Or is it the cap?
So fillet is the option on a cube.
Yeah.
The tool is the bevel tool to round it out.
And then I made two, and then I copy and pasted other cylinders. I mean capsules. The legs.
Those are capsules?
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Here's Cassandra's. Cassandra looks really good. She put a wood texture on there. She's got like some sort of wood texture on the TV table. Functionally as a TV table, I don't know. Like, it seems like you're just inviting someone to put stuff in front of the television so you can't watch TV. So, good job modeling. Design-wise, I don't know. Bellen's TV table looks great. You put a dog on there, extra credit. Looks cute. That's cool. It's like old style television with like 16 with anamorphic aspect ratio. It's like if James Cameron made a television in 1965. Anna asks if yes. Whose is this? Oh, Danielle's. Danielle's TV stand. Cool. So it's more of like a shelf, right? So to make a shelf or a bookshelf like this, Danielle is on the chat, but how did she do this, you guys?
Multiple cubes. They did the whole thing that we did practice earlier. There's probably multiple ways.
Yep. Yeah. So she made a cube, cut it in half, and then did inner extrude and then extrude to push in.
I probably would have just made a bunch of cubes, but that's probably way more efficient.
Yeah. Yeah. For something like this, this happens a lot. That's a really good point, Riley. When you're starting off here, a lot of students' intuition is to take things and jam them together. Whereas you want to develop the idea that you have a thing that you modify and cut up to make the thing, versus taking stuff and smushing it together, right? Taking multiple cubes and jamming them together here would be not as great workflow. Cool, here's Noelle's. Nice. Okay, so you got separate cubes here, and then you did some extrude at the bottom to make this? Okay, cool. So that's not a separate cylinder here at the very bottom. It's you manipulated this cylinder. Cool. Right. It's a good example of what I was just saying. Everybody see what I'm talking about here? Right? Like usually the first week, if somebody might make this same shape by just making a second cylinder and putting it at the bottom here versus manipulating the geometry on the first cylinder. Nice. Okay, and then those are the other ones. Everybody else is posting? Whose is this? Oh, Nicole's, cool. All right, so yeah, you put the, so how'd you do this? The cloner?
Wait, which part?
Is this your model? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so how did you do this part here?
Like the greatest part?
Yeah.
Like how you just showed me.
Oh, you just did what I said. Oh, okay, I see. Okay, I thought you made this before, and then, okay. Cool. Yeah, so the design's right on, right? You got the cool looking tripod legs.
It looks crappy because it's from my phone and I can't get connected to the Wi-Fi, and I tried talking to the tech person out there. And
Are you signing into the Gaucho net?
yeah, it won't let me connect.
And you're using your MEID at mccccd.org.
Oh, I didn't know I had to put all
Yes, yes. So your name is it's confusing. The very first sign in, you have to say your username is MEID at mccc 3cs.d.org.
Okay.
Then sign in with MEID and so on and so forth. You asked the help desk and they didn't tell you that?
He told me, I thought it was my password, so that's what we were talking about, not the username part.
Okay. Cool, here's Jose's. Oh, we saw this one earlier. He put WandaVision on there. Nice. And yeah, here's, I can just do this. So he made a really nice leg here using inner extrude and extrude to create like a design right there. Looks good. Kyler's. Nice. And so it's like a inset pattern here. Oh, they're like doors. Okay, I see. And so are they separate doors, or like they're separate pieces?
No, they're just slightly insetted and then extruded.
Okay, yeah, exactly. Right, so this comes to another really good point. Is this looks cool as doors, and in 90% of instances this would be great, right? You don't want to do any more work than you have to, right? So if the design brief said like we need a TV stand and then we need to animate the doors opening, well then there need to be separate pieces, so on and so forth. But most of the time you can get away with just having something there that looks like a door and you're fine. Cool, and then how'd you make the knobs?
Just cylinders and balls on top.
Okay, cool. And this is, oh yeah, Emily, you made two? Cool, so you got like a, how'd you make this one?
I just made a few added fillet and I just extruded it. What? No, just one leg and then I copy and paste or control drag.
Yeah. Yep, yeah, control drag is the way to go there, right? Because you control drag one, and then you control drag two, and you have four legs. And they're exactly lined up. And then you made drawers too. And how'd you make the handle?
I got what's it called? Taurus, and then just kind of mess with its settings.
Oh, cool. Yeah, so the Taurus, I would encourage you to really investigate the primitives, right? I believe the Taurus is one where is donut, here it is. most of the things that are circular, like the torus or the tube or the disc, I would make a note of this in my notes. They have a slice. And so look what happens in slice. You can turn it on and then control exactly how much of this you would need, right? So you could make a quarter tube or something like that. And so the torus is like that. The disc has the same parameter, right? If you needed one slice of pizza, right there. And the tube is like that as well. Right? So here's the tube, slice. Make sense? That really helps getting into the zone. And then your drawers, Emily, are those separate pieces, or are they just?
Yeah, like if you pull on the torus, it pulls out, and there's like an emptiness. I made each drawer empty.
Awesome, cool.
Like it's ready and
Looks good. Here's another. Oh, so Nicole, you got the screenshot. Yeah, now you're on the Wi-Fi, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Thank you.
And then Marvin posted one before class. Where's his? Oh yeah, right here. So he's got like a double shelf thing. And look at this. Marvin took particular attention. The beveling of the edges, right? It definitely needs to happen every time to make it nice and smooth. Jose, the file needs to be named new, and then you might need to restart Cinema 4D for that to work. Is there a way to video chat on Slack?
I don't think so.
Has anybody done that? Like it was just audio?
Yeah, I only did audio because I had to do that for a project, but sometimes it would like freeze.
Okay. I'll have to see what I can do as far as a way that the live chat people can call in. That would be cool. Wait, what?
OBS, right?
What?
On OBS.
On OBS? What, to
Wait,
call?
oh, my bad. I thought you guys were talking about OBS.
No, we're just saying about doing a call on Slack. I mean, I suppose I could just have the Google Meet open, but I mean, like, how many things can I handle at once here? Okay, grab your note. Let's move on here. So for Wednesday, remember, no class on Monday, right? So what would usually be due Monday is now due Wednesday. Let's see, did I actually change the date on this assignment to September 8th? I did. Okay, good. So there's a bunch of stuff for you to check out here. One is a really great book on digital modeling. There's not, of the modeling textbooks, I like this part of this one. And again, chapters 3 and 4 are software agnostic. They're just talking about general 3D principles that would apply to any program. So reading and taking notes in chapters 3 and 4. And then there's this really great series of just general computer graphics principles from the Gorilla CG project on Vimeo. And again, these are not tutorials. They demonstrate different principles, software agnostic again, just the general principles. This would apply to anything. And I want you to take notes on those. But let's add a creative part component to this. And so in the hierarchies one, they talk about building hierarchies here. And let's build this, a facsimile thereof of a robot that you could use to do the two different types of hierarchies that they explain here. So let's work on that together so that you're ready for that when we come up here. Sound good? So in addition, I'll put it in it's not in the assignment right now, I'll put it in when we're done, that you'll turn in all of your notes and the animation of the robot. Sound good? So, first, let's just review rendering, right? And so in order to view the rendered output, the shortcut is Control-R, right? We all know that. And then Shift-R renders to the picture viewer. The picture viewer is a separate window, and this shows us what's going to be going on. And more importantly, as we render to the picture viewer multiple times, it keeps a record of these over here. And so this is a really great way to, as you're working on things like A/B, different options, A/B testing, meaning like sort of look at one, look at the other one, and make decisions about your options. And in order to complete this assignment, we'll also need to do some keyframing. So let's just review basic keyframing here. I'm just going to make this cube spin. So I'm going to go to the cube. I'm going to go to coordinates. And keyframing is much simpler in Cinema 4D. Remember, to set a keyframe, you just merely need to press the button next to the parameter. So this button right here. And so which way do I want this to spin? I want it to spin this way. Okay, so the H parameter. And so at the beginning, I'm going to press, then make a keyframe. I'm going to go to the end. So I'm moving the playhead all the way to the end. And I'm going to put in 360 so that it turns the whole way around. Now, watch what happens. I type in 360, and it turns yellow. Yellow is the Cinema 4D way of telling me that you have changed this, but you have not recorded it into a keyframe. And so in Cinema 4D, red is record. And so I'm going to press the button again, and now I have a keyframe. And so if I press play down here, I can see this spinning. So I've set some keyframes here for some animation. So far, so good? Now, I usually only use this view for very, very general animation work. If I need to do anything more intense, I come up here to the layout, and I switch it to the animation layout, or the animate layout. Here, I get something that looks more akin to After Effects, in that I have my timeline, and then over here, these are the two most important buttons. This is to look at the keyframe or dope sheet view, right? That's the view where we have the keyframes usually as like a square on a timeline. And then we also have the curve view right here. The F in Cinema 4D, the curves or the graph editor are referred to as the F curves, right? And so here's one, here's the other. Dope sheet, F curves. Dope sheet, F curves. Everybody with me there? Great. Down here, the navigation is the same as the window. And so if you hold Alt and click the right button, you can zoom in and out. If you hold Alt and press the wheel, you can slide left and right. Additionally, if you go to the F-curve view and you use the mouse where you get things all discombobulated, like this, what was the shortcut to fix the view in the viewport? Like if you zoomed way out or zoomed way in, how could you rescue yourself? H also rescues you down here. And so H normalizes the view to something where you can tell what's going on. So H is your friend. H for help. I hadn't thought of that. That's probably why they picked H. Okay, so great. Now when I'm rotating something, I almost always don't want to have this easing happening on the front and back. And so I'm going to select both keyframes. And again, in Cinema 4D, the buttons are so much better designed. Look here. This clearly communicates the different types of keyframes. Linear, step, and curve, right? And what I would write down is that in Cinema 4D, the default is curve. In this case, I'm going to switch it to linear.
You can also just have L.
L for linear? All right. So now we're spinning at a fixed rate. Looks good. I'm going to go back to standard. Cool. Now, you're going to want to output a movie for Wednesday. How do we output a movie? We are going to come up to these buttons up here. These are all the buttons that have to do with outputting a render, right? This is, anybody know what this is? What's this called? What? Not tape. Slate. The slate, right? Take one, right? All those buttons have to do with rendering or making the movie. I think it's pretty clear. And so the one with the gear, this is all the settings. So I'm going to press that button. And in here, let me bring a couple things to your attention. Let's do our usual resolution, high def. And so that's what by what? 1920 by 1080, right? If you don't have that memorized, write that down and commit it to memory. Consider a tattoo. No, seriously, don't get it tattooed because there's already 4K resolution. And even if you got 4K resolution tattooed, like there's already 8K, so it would be a bad tattoo. So we have 1920 by 1080. Okay, I want to alert. This is part of Cinema 4D that I wish was different, is that you can, it will allow you to render at a different frame rate than the project. I think this is a bad default, right? I was ranting earlier about defaults. This should really default to whatever you have your project set to. I can understand why this is a thing you might want to be able to, but usually it just messes up everything, okay? And so what frame rate are we rendering? What frame rate do we want? 24, right? We just went through all that rigmarole to make sure that our default project is at 24, right? And so I definitely put this with a star in your notes, that you have to switch, when you change frame rate in Cinema 4D, you got to do it in two places, project settings and the render settings. And so here, I'm going to switch it to 24. And then we don't want to render just one frame. We want to render all of them. So we'll say all frames. Cool. Everybody good so far? Right? And so all of that was with the, under the save box here, as far as the format. Or, I'm sorry, I'm currently in the output part. Now I'm going to click on save. And here we can render out what we want. Now, I don't want to also have to go over After Effects today. And so I'm going to tell you something, don't make me regret it, is that we can make a movie out of Cinema 4D. So if we come in here, you can select MP4. Okay, usually we're taking our Cinema 4D renders and bringing them into After Effects, and that's what we'll do later in the semester. But if we select MP4, and then we say, where do we want to put this thing? We want to put it in the data drive here, and I'll call this cube render test. Save. Okay. Again, format. Later on, we're going to make an image sequence, okay? And use it in After Effects just like we do in 184. But here, we're just going to make a movie so that in this assignment, we can just quickly make a movie. We're not going to do a bunch of post-processing on it right now. So we got MP4. And the other thing to be aware of is that when you render a movie, if it crashes while you're rendering the movie, you kind of need to restart it. But this render should be pretty fast. Well, this one here will be really fast. And I'm all good. And so here, I've essentially set the table for the render, right? How do I actually render? Middle button. This one is the, actually render the movie, right here. Right there, right? Before we just set up all the settings right here, and now we're going to render. So check it out. I'm going to hit the button. And we see it doing its work. This is also how Cinema 4D is different than After Effects. You'll see it drawing each frame. The process should be pretty quick for this homework. In the future, this could take a lot longer. Each yellow block is one CPU core on your computer drawing out that part of the frame. And you see that this is going pretty quick. You can also hit play while it's going, and it'll play back what it has. And once it's done, it'll author everything to that MP4. Let's come down in here and check. On the D drive. And cube render test. Here it is. I made a movie.
What's it called?
Cube NATO. Cube NATO. I'm setting up a franchise. $1920 by 1080, 24 FPS, all frames, right? And then under format, you want MP4. Does that make sense? Great. Okay, we got to keep going because I don't want to run out of time. I want to make sure that we can get close to this robot so everyone can use it for the homework. Okay? Everybody ready? I'll move a little bit quicker than usual. Maybe. Okay, so without giving too much away, they talk about hierarchies in this video, and they demonstrate two different ways to set up a hierarchy for this very simple sort of two-armed robot. Let's make a comparable robot that you can use to demonstrate your knowledge of hierarchies. So, if you had to pick a shape for the center of said robot,
Do we have to pick the exact robot, or can we kind of make our own?
you can give it your own flair,
Okay.
right? So, don't go way off
Yeah.
plan here, right? Don't make Pacific Rim 3, right? I just want.
That'd be pretty impressive though. I am glad we clarified this now.
You were ready to start making Pacific Rim 3? Okay. Like we're working towards that, but we're not going to get there in 3 weeks. Okay? So yeah, we're talking about basic robot body with 2 arms, right? Because that's, if you watch, once you watch the video, that's sort of the principle that they're demonstrating there. So the center of that robot, something like, there we go. And if we look at this again here, right, this is our reference, some sort of thing here and some sort of, bottom part to give it some directionality, right? Somewhere direction is forward. So there we go. And I'm going to come in here, NB, so we can see what we're doing. Let's make the part on the bottom. I'm going to get rid of this plane for right now. I don't need this. I'm recording, right? Here we go. And we're making the robot that we're going to use in our movie. And so it has that thing sticking out the bottom. You could do that by jamming a cylinder in here. Or, what else could you do? We could what to these polygons? Extrude them, exactly. You're going to hit C. You can come over here. I need to select these. I'm going to press U, L, and those. And hit D. And bring that out. You see it kind of flares out. I want to make it smaller. So I'm going to use, I want to make it smaller on the blue-red plane. What's another name for that plane? Blue and red are what and what? X and XZ plane. Remember, the floor is XZ. I'm going to hit T. And if I want to do the XZ plane, I can mouse over this guy, right there, this thing. And you see that scales that down, like so. Now, I want to flatten this out. Here's a really great trick. I'm going to use the Y. Watch what happens. Scaling on the Y, and hold Shift. And I'll scale down to 0. And that will flatten the entire selection that I have. And so that.
Do you hold shift while dragging?
That's right. I started dragging, then I pressed and held down Shift. And it does the same thing when you're moving things. It quantizes it, right? So instead of trying to go from 0.083 to 0, it'll just go 10%, 5%, 0%, right? There we go. And what should be the front of the robot?
Where the thing is facing
Which one?
the arrows.
Which arrow? This one or this one? You got a 50-50 shot.
The one that drags across the ground.
And that's true for both of these arrows. Pick a color.
Blue?
Yeah! Ding, 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 ding. There we go. Blue, right? Because forward is, your forward should always be in the Z direction. If you're modeling something that has a forward, it should be in the Z direction. Cool. Let's make the visor part. And so I'm just going to select some of these polygons here like this. And I'm going to hit I and inset them. Make sure that I have preserve groups on. And then D. Bring them in like so. I'm going to want to texture that separately. And so I'm going to make a black visor look here. Let's add some reflection. Not too much. Let's make it dark. Cool shades. And put that on there. There we go. That works. And now I'm going to go about building an arm. Okay, so the arm parts, let's come back and check our reference. Right, we're using this as a guide. Okay, so we got, whoa.
This tutorial,
Whoa. All right, there we go. We got like a rotating sphere. Here is the sphere joint, and then a connector, and then a sphere connector, and some hands. So we'll build one. I'm going to make this, and I'm going to hit E, move it over to where I want. Whoops. straight up. Hit T and bring it down. Right about there. I like that size. That works. And again, this is going to need to be a separate part because this all needs to move, right? So these all need to be separate components. And so this will be the, well, I know we're going to make two, right? And so this will be the right shoulder. Because you know later you're going to need a left shoulder. Actually, a better way to name this stuff is say shoulder R, right? Because that way it makes it easier to name the other one shoulder L later on, right? And this is the robot's right, my left, the way I'm looking at it right now. Cool, there we go, we've got that. Now let's go ahead and bring in a cylinder. I want the cylinder to face this way, and so I'm going to select the cylinder and say object, let's face it in the red direction. Red is which axis? X, very good. Again, cylinder pretty heavy in the rotation segments, and so let's back that off to maybe 24. And this can be much less. Right, I'm going kind of quick here, but I'm not doing anything that looks totally crazy, right? I'm going to come over here to my orthographic view. And remember, this is all being recorded, so I'll be up there. And bring this in. This feels too long. T, E. There we go. Okay, so I've got shoulder, and then we'll call this upper arm right, R. Great, and so now when the shoulder rotates, we want the upper arm to go with it, and that means we need to make the upper arm a child of the shoulder. And so I'm going to select the upper arm and make it a child of the shoulder. Let's test this. So if I take the shoulder and rotate, cool, that comes along for the ride. Right, this should be ringing some bells back to the 2D robot arm project in After Effects, right? Cool. And let's take this one step further. So, I keep hitting this. There we go. He'll come back in a sec. Misfit Pants says, nice movie name. And then he spelled it cube space capital N, capital A, capital T, capital O. So I have to assume Marvin's making a Sharknado joke about the North Atlantic Treaty Organization? NATO? That's clever. I'm impressed, Marvin. There's a lot going on in that joke. So here, let's rename this to Robot Body. And of course, the shoulder should be a child of the robot body, so that when the robot flies around, the shoulder obviously comes around. So if I hit E and move my robot around, whoops, I want to be in object mode. There we go. Everything is attached. So far, so good. All right, so now I need another arm component here, and I've already got one. I think I can get away with doing this again. And here, I'm going to take the shoulder. I'm going to take the shoulder and Control-C, Control-V. So now I've got two. And I'm going to move this one into position right here at the end. I'm going to make some changes to the size, like so, and to here. Making it a little bit thinner. That's too thin. Maybe right there. And maybe a little shorter. Move this in, like so. That's good. And this, let's rename it to elbow right. And then this would be lower arm right. There we go. And this should be a child of the shoulder. And so we can fold that up. And if we rotate this around, that looks right. If we rotate the shoulder around, everything comes along. I am robot. Making sense so far? Again, I don't want to run out of time here before the weekend, so. And let's do the hand. I'll make another sphere. Let's bring this way down. Not that far. Again, positioning it much easier when you're in orthographic view. Let's say right about here. A little bit more here. There we go. And we need like a claw. I'm going to try the tube. And I'm going to change the direction on this to, there we go. I'm going to make the segments way less to like 12. And I'm going to use that slice command that we just talked about. And so let's say here to right about here, and make this much thinner. So the inner radius, moving this out, outer radius, bring this in. In fact, let's make it close to the right size. So there to there, and then the height of it, bring this way down. That's about what we want, right? So getting pretty close to the shape that I want just through manipulating the primitive. There we go. That works. But I'm going to want the anchor point for this to be here, right? This is like the base of the claw figure. And so I need to press what to make it editable? C. And then anchor point tool, shortcut L. L, E. Move this over there. Turn that off. And let's move this into position. Up here. Let's go to the orthographic views. Here. Right about there. That works. I'm going to do one extrusion. So I'm going to get both of those. I'm going to press I, D, T. There we go. It's a little more claw-like. And we'll call this finger 1. And if I go back to this mode, there we go. That's working for finger rotation. In fact, you know what I'm going to do here? This is pretty important for the claw, is that I want these all to rotate around the center here. I'm going to move it a little bit. So this part is a little bit new. Here, I might make it a little bit bigger, kind of like that. All right, and so I'm going to go back to anchor point. I am going to move the anchor point to the center of the hand and turn that off. Now, I should easily be able to make some more fingers by holding down R, and then what is copy drag? Control drag. See how that works, right? And then just do it one more time. Control drag. Now I've got my 3-fingered robot. Now I can go ahead and make those a child of my hand, R, and put those in there underneath. Hand R becomes a child of elbow R, and we're good to go. And I'll give you a hint. I'll write this down on screen. For the homework, only the body will have position keyframes. All other body parts will have rotation. So the only thing that you'll move around is the very center of the robot. Everything else will be rotating around the axes. Does that make sense for everybody? Okay? And so there'll be 2 parts of your video. First, and so you're going to need to duplicate the robot. There'll be robot 1. I'm trying to remember what he has him do in the video, where he's like flying. Robot 2 is swinging from a pole, right? And so if you had to model a pole, you'd probably use a cylinder, right? I think you can handle that. So in your video, you're going to have 2 robots, and you should duplicate them. Feel free to add flare, but don't get distracted by the flare process, right? Try to focus on actually making the robot move. And I'm going to save this file. Save as, right? And also, here, let's robot. I'll give you another hint, right? I need another arm. E, control drag. Now I have 2 arms. Cool. I recorded all of that. I'll attach it to the assignment. Sound good?
Yes.
All right. Awesome. Have a good weekend. Have a good Labor Day. I'll see you guys on Wednesday. Yes.
Yes. I have what you need.
You're trying to select a polygon? Yeah, or wait. Okay, there you go. something.
Oh, yeah, well, sorry. But like,
Just a random stick
it was harder than
Again, like, it's so much harder to fix.
is that like, I thought because once we started making these, we were already working on functions.
So I did
And like,
after like you put it on and we
like
put
solving
that
graphs.
we did it about.
We just barely, we
What
were
popped
just
out?
It's because when I was doing the base mesh, it wasn't letting me choose it. It was saying that there was 14 pieces like multiplying whatever like pops up over your to bake it all.
Oh, okay, so bake the measurement.
Yeah. And it finally
And
did.
now you,
Yeah, that's what I had to do. At home it was just
Everything else in high school kind of.
yeah. Nothing fashion, it just took a little longer on there.
do you have another drawing here? There's a,
It's basically very instead of magic, it's just engineering.
I think it's taking the defaults here, so I might try to go to settings, system, display. Okay, turn this down. This is just too easy. There we go. Yeah, so now you can see what.
I could send this today.
Okay.
So after that, what should I do? After doing the whole materials and doing the logo on it?
Yeah, so yeah, logos, material, all that business, you need to make a separate one for the goal. Yeah, so do you do all that for what's it?
For next one,
Yeah, the next one is good, yeah, put all that together.
Okay.
Oh, and you have the soda bottle too, right?
Yeah, I finished that one.
So bring the soda bottle in for the same treatment.
To do the materials.
Mm-hmm.